Football is awesome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Friday Night Roots. I'm your host, Justin Thomas. Do me a huge favor before we jump into it. Like the video, share the video with your friends, and subscribe if you can. Appreciate all the love I can give. Let's get into it. Bears hire Ben Johnson. Super stoked to talk about that. I'm just going to kind of take today to do a video on that, my thoughts on it. I'll throw some statistics in there to keep it interesting. But yeah, just my overall thoughts on it. Why I think that could be a good move and why I think maybe it couldn't be a good move. So yeah, let's kind of jump into it. And as always, let's talk some ball. So Ben Johnson to the Bears, huge monumental move. I think this was a good decision by the Bears, to kind of start. GM Ryan Poles is, obviously there already. I think this is kind of one of those. I think this is one of those moves that the Bears ownership is making. Just swinging for the fences at this point. I love the Caleb pick. I still like the Caleb pick. And it. I'll be honest. This hiring cycle this year in 2020 for the 2025 season isn't that great. I mean, it's like Raiders, Jets, Titans. Yeah, it's just not a great, not a lot of great openings for these coaches, right? Frankly, Cowboys. So yeah, no, I think it was a great move by the Bears. The Bears got the guy, and that's what it comes down to, right? The Bears got the guy. They got the quarterback. Obviously, that offensive line needs a shit ton of work, but they've got some weapons. It's kind of like they got all the pieces there. They just got to build the Lego. They got the pieces there. They just need to build the foundation, do the framing, do the plumbing, do the electric. They just got to build the thing, right? Everything's there. Now build it. And I think that's ultimately taking a swing for the fences is kind of what the Bears are hoping for. So, anywho, and I was seeing in reports today, throughout the course of this hiring process, we were getting leaked things like Ben Johnson to the Raiders. Tom Brady's really selling Ben Johnson on this, and when I look back at it and I'm like, man, like who is doing that? If you ask me, who would really be releasing that information to the media? I think it was Ben Johnson in his camp. I think it was his own team, his own agent, and his people that are releasing this information. Why do I think that? I think they were doing it to create urgency with the Bears. Like maybe it was he was trying to get a little more money. Maybe he was trying to get a longer contract with the Bears. I'm not totally sure kind of how that played out, but I don't think it was a bad strategy because, I think if you put a gun to anyone's head, a week ago and said, where's Ben Johnson going? A lot of us would have said the Raiders because these NFL insiders, these analysts were all saying, oh, he's going to the Raiders. So kind of surprised that didn't happen, but I'm glad he didn't go to the Raiders. Why would you go to the Raiders? No quarterback. Not only that, Crosby said something in an article recently about how he's considered leaving excuse me. I know he said something about how he doesn't have any more guaranteed money. And what that leads me to believe as a amateur analyst, you could say, what that leads me to believe is that, he's going to either, basically ask for a big number or request a trade. And honestly, with the Raiders, nuke them, restart, give them a refresh. I mean, fuck, they need it. So anyway, let's kind of jump back on to Ben Johnson. And, another interesting thing is Ben Johnson, did go to a team all with that already has a GM. So I thought it could have been a little more exciting for him to go to the Raiders had he been able to bring his guy or his GM, I would say. And I think that would be the assistant GM for the Commanders, and the GM for the Commanders is Adam Peters. His assistant guy, I don't totally remember what his name is, but he would have been that guy. So, just excited for Ben Johnson. I think this is a good move by the Bears, but everything has a downside, and I'll kind of touch on why I think there could be a downside as time goes on in the video. But anyway. Ben Johnson, 38 years old, takes this job. So excited for him after Eberflus, essentially was exited out of Chicago. And the positive too for it being Chicago. Chicago's still a big market. I think the Bears are still their biggest team. Don't get me wrong. Chicago is they have the Bulls and other sports teams, but I think Chicago definitely is dominated by the Bears. I think everyone's a Bears fan. I think he chose a good market, a competitive market, and sticking with the NFC North. So, yeah, let's just go into the facts of it. Ben Johnson's had an incredible record, an incredible record with the Lions. They were a top ranked offense in several categories over the last couple years. First in offense, points per game, 28.2, yards per game, 395, touchdowns per drive, 33%, red zone touchdown percentage, 67%. I mean, Ben Johnson had the Lions cooking. And ultimately I think that could be the downfall of the Lions later, but we'll talk about that, as we get closer to the end of the video. Um, he did lead. Obviously, he led the Lions last year to the NFC Championship game, and then this year, number one seed. Didn't make it past the divisional round because Jaden Daniels had something to say about it, but still a massive accomplishment. Like I said, everyone in the NFL was just itching for this guy just because he has such a good offensive mind, and it being an offensive league now, they have Caleb. It just made perfect sense for the Bears to be the one to ultimately offer him the job, offer him the money to do it, and I'm glad they did because I know the Bears. They're one of those franchises who has that shaky, half in kind of mentality sometimes, especially with quarterbacks and coaches. So I'm glad they're swinging, and I'm glad they got Caleb. I'm glad they got Ben. So, and I think Ben Johnson, he obviously gets praise from a lot of people across the league, but even Ryan Poles is one of those guys who's been actually almost kind of complimenting him for a while. I know Ben Johnson's known for his leadership, his character, his intelligence. I'm trying to think. I think he just has like a very awesome progressive offense. He really reminds me of a Sean McVay. He's always adapting. He's always changing. He's a little more aggressive. Now it'll be interesting to see if that aggressiveness leaves or maybe slows down since MCDC Dane Campbell's not calling those plays anymore, or the ones going on fourth down. But who knows? Maybe he found his footing on the fourth down. It'll be interesting to see. It also depends on the Bears personnel. If you don't have the right personnel to do it, obviously you can't do it. So, um, and then I saw a report today that Ben Johnson plans on bringing Dennis Allen from the Saints, and then the DC, Darren Rizzi from the Saints as a special teams coordinator. So, yeah, I know, he has a lot of ties to Dennis Allen and Rizzi, going from his past and his upbringing, going through the league. So, I don't know if Dennis Allen and Darren Rizzi are the two guys I would choose, given the coordinators that. Oh, excuse me. Given the coordinators that are currently available at the moment, I don't know if those are the two I would choose, but I don't hate it. Ultimately, he's gonna get to run the show as far as the coaching hires, and him and Ryan Poles, I assume, have had those dialogue conversations of what's allowed, what isn't. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Bears did a little extra when it came to the search process. I know Ryan Poles is kind of GMing for his job, if you will. A lot of people thought that could have been it for him after this year's, but Chicago Bears, this is one thing I thought was rather intriguing or interesting was they interviewed like 17 candidates before announcing Ben Johnson's hire. And some of those candidates were really good. Ron Rivera, Mike McCarthy, Eddie George. I know they had to keep in compliance with the NFL's Rooney rule about interviewing, but I thought it was a lot, but it doesn't matter anymore. They got the guy. Just depends on how it goes. Caleb Williams' connection with him is going to be a huge implication to this, right? I know Caleb said in an interview not too long ago he really would appreciate an offensive-minded coach for the team, just because Caleb, I think, is one of those guys he's not your typical pocket passer. He's kind of got a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers swing out, strong arm kind of a feel to him. So I think as long as whereas Jared Goff's the complete opposite. Jared Goff's a true and true, through and through pocket passer. He sits up, takes his drop, plants his feet, boom, balls away. I think Caleb's not that, so it'll be interesting to see how kind of they built their relationship around Ben Johnson's play calling. So we'll see. I think Ben Johnson's impact on QB, he obviously, clearly, without a doubt, improved Jared Goff's performance by a mile. I mean, I'm not to say that, when Sean McVay got Jared Goff that he couldn't. It just, you could definitely see the transition and the switch of Jared Goff when he kind of got working with Ben Johnson. It felt like Jared Goff's career almost kind of got reflipped. Obviously, he got extended, got a huge contract extension, like $50 million or something. So, I think it definitely made a difference. And can Ben Johnson focus on reducing sacks for the Bears? Use the play action. I think the Bears expect similar development for Caleb Williams out of Ben Johnson, who struggled with sacks, who, struggled with just kind of everything. I just feel like the Bears offense lacked creativity, and I think Ben Johnson will add a lot of creativity. I think he brings like all these innovative schemes, like kind of like we talk about, which seems to be the main coaching theme in the NFL, the Shanahan, the McVay, the LaFleur, the Kevin O'Connell, the all this kind of West Coast, Mike Shanahan tree of coaching, right? These innovative schemes, including heavy play action, heavy pre-snap motion, heavy run plays, which, of course, naturally speaking, I looked up the statistics. The Bears ranked absolutely poorly, and I'll be honest, I think the Bears have a lot of tools except for one. I don't love the running back. I don't love Swift. I don't think he's a starting running back in this league, especially not with a Ben Johnson type. So I assume with the heavy running back draft, they got the quarterback, they got all they need is the running back and the O-line, and I think they'll have enough to start with this year to really get those wheels turning and hopefully get the Bears a positive record. So, excuse me. Sorry. Long day at work. Bears roster and obviously the draft assets that they have going into this year. Bears have the 10th overall pick. They have about $75 million in cap space for before free agency, which is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's an insane amount, but it's very good. The top teams are at 100, just over 100. So 75 is really good. Top third, I think. Key offensive players, set to be free agents: Allens, Jenkins, Pryor, and Shelton. Just guys that I'm sure Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles will be having conversations about in the next few weeks. Overall, I love the hire. Kind of a contrary opinion to probably most is, I think, and feel free if I get enough people who watch this to comment and let me know what you think. I really think the Lions could be an upset alert. And what I mean by upset alert is they could come in next year and they could suck. And when I say suck, obviously the roster is one of the best. So I don't think I'm not saying that they're going to come in and win 3 games. What I'm more saying is that I think they could come in and win like 9 or 10 games, 8 or 9 even. If Dan Campbell doesn't get the right coordinator, as you know, he's a CEO head coach. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. Total CEO head coach. He's got the motivation. He's got the grit. He can handle the media. I think it's more of whoever replaces Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, because it sounds like from the reports I've read, even Aaron Glenn informed the team, hey, basically, love ya, but I don't think I'm going to come back. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe Aaron Glenn does return, assuming he doesn't get the head coaching job or offer he wants. But he might. I know he interviewed with the Jets. I know Ben Johnson told the Jets to basically fuck off. He's like, no way I'm taking that job. And good on him, because I think Jets are, under Woody Johnson, I think they're one of the worst franchises to work for. But anyway, I do think the Lions could suck, and that's a big fear I have, and I'm not the only one. I've put my feelers out with people I know, like, hey, what do you really think about the Lions and post Ben Johnson? Well, they got the personnel, so I don't think they'll be terrible, but I think they could suck. I think they could take a huge step back. If Jared Goff doesn't get comfortable, we know how that could go. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I can touch on it on a later date, but another thing that, being a head coach is not the same. It is absolutely not the same as being a coordinator. And a great example of that's Chip Kelly in Ohio State, who just won last night. Congratulations, Chip Kelly and Ohio State. But look at, for example, Chip Kelly came from Oregon. He had a dominant stint at Oregon. LaMichael James. Who else? LaMichael James, DeAnthony Thomas. I mean, the Oregon team when he was there was incredible. Take that, throw him in the NFL a few years, throw him back into college. As a coordinator, as we all know, then it seems to be a somewhat ignored fact to some of these GMs and owners, some people are just a better, coordinator than they are head coach. Some people, that's just true. The head coach has all this way more media pressure, way more media attention. They got to deal with stuff with players on and off the field. They have to coordinate a whole lot of things. I mean, head coaches, they're coordinating game plans, schedules. A head coach is basically a CEO of a team, right? I mean, not quite like a GM would be. They're not doing they're not writing checks for the cleaning ladies, but they're doing big things when it comes to the football team directly. So how will Ben Johnson adapt to that? When someone ends up getting a DUI or something and he gets in front of the media, how will he handle that as a head coach, and how will he, ultimately be a leader of men? And that's another thing Caleb said he wanted. How will he be a leader of men and direct that locker room? Obviously, Ben Johnson has a little bit of quirkiness to. Oh, excuse me. He has a little bit of quirkiness to him, so it'll be interesting to see if that translates to good football, because Dan Campbell's such a dominant presence. So just something to consider, something I've been thinking about. And let's be honest, let's be honest. Like, were there any jobs out there that any of you guys would have rather taken than the Bears? Fuck no. I mean, listen, I'm gonna kind of dive back in on the Raiders on this one. Why the hell would anybody want to go to the Raiders right now? I mean, they're about to nuke the team anyway. But like, why? What is intriguing about that job at all? No quarterback, so middle of the pack offensive line. Awesome defensive line, though. One of the better defensive lines. It seems like defensive back, so. It just seems like everyone on that team is just not. I'm not going to say not good. They're all professionals, but I just think without the proper direction, you could take a team of the best athletes in the world and they end up looking like the Raiders did last year. So you got to be very careful. I just think I'm not surprised he took the Bears job. Just having that quarterback as a safety blanket already can boost you as a coach. It can keep you around 2 extra years just by having a quarterback. That's how impactful it is nowadays in the NFL. It's not the same. I mean, and remember, he's also leaving his two, rock star running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles. He's not going to have them anymore. He's going to DeAndre Swift, so that's why I think it's something important the Bears address in the draft. Another thing I kind of wanted that I've been swirling my brain around Ben Johnson is same division. And I see a lot of people in the media and Twitter talking about this. Why would he want to stay in the same division? Well, I think it actually makes perfect sense. And if I was him, I don't hate the move. I really don't. I mean, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. He's been scheming against these guys forever. All right, I know what I just said. Not forever, but he's been scheming against these guys for years, 2 years, right? He knows each of their teams. He knows the schemes they're running on defense. He kind of has he has the feel for them. He knows the staff members. He knows who the players these teams are targeting. I actually think it equips him better for this job than people say. Oh, most coaches kind of want to leave. They want to get a fresh start. They want to join a shittier division. Listen, the NFC North was awesome this year, but they also went 0-3 in the playoffs in all their first appearances. I'm just saying, and if the Lions do take the step back that I think they could, who knows? Maybe Ben Johnson with Caleb becomes the next NFC North frontrunner. I don't hate his thinking there, and I don't think you can fault a lot of people for hating his thinking there. I mean, just take a look at it. And another thing I super respect the fuck out of Ben Johnson for, he didn't even entertain the idea of interviewing with the Jets, and good for him, because that would have just been a terrible mistake. And I'm so glad he's staying with the Raiders or staying with the Bears. I just think it was the best move for him in this interesting coaching cycle with I'd say a subpar draft compared to normal years. I don't want to, be overly zealous with my words, but subpar draft, a lot of running backs though, and I think get Swift out of there, find a new replacement for him. Let me know what you guys think about Ben Johnson. Talk to me in the comments if you're willing. Anyway, I'll kind of close this video with some other light news. Kevin O'Connell got his contract extended. Not too much to say about it. I know at the end of the year it kind of got a little fuzzy because he was basically going to the Vikings, or him and his agent were going to the Vikings saying, hey, I'm making like $3 to $5 million a year. I've led this team on multiple 10 plus this year, 14 plus win seasons. Like, all the bigger coaches are making anywhere from like 10 to 15 to 20 million a year. So, not surprised he got extended. I think it was 100% the right move for Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell, I'd say, is clearly one of the better coaches when it comes to being a quarterback whisperer. He can really calm a quarterback down. He can take a quarterback and make him, I'd say, more effective than if he didn't meet Kevin. So, good move by the Vikings. I love the move. I'm secretly a passive Vikings fan, so excited for them. Other last bit of news I found today: Cooper Kupp is uncertain of his future with the Rams, but he said he still intends on playing next year. This one doesn't surprise me. Obviously, Puka's kind of taken that star Cooper Kupp role, and Cooper Kupp's last really strong season was the Super Bowl. He's kind of dealt with some injuries here and there too, so I'm not surprised. I think Cooper Kupp's mm, I think he's kind of one of those receivers who he'll stay in the $20 million range, but he might take a smaller contract with his next organization, and who knows, he could stay. I just don't see the Bear or the Rams being willing to pay out just a fork out a bunch of money for a Super Bowl champion who probably thinks he's worth a lot and what he's brought to the organization, which you can't ignore, but reality is he's getting old, and I think he'll probably end up on another team for another year or two, and then at some point he'll have a shitty enough season, or he'll get injured again, or they'll have a good season and he'll want to end on a good note, and that'll be that for Cooper Kupp. So thought it was interesting. If they do move off him or trade him, it'll be kind of interesting to see where he ends up. I'm sure I'll talk about it on here, but yeah, that covers it for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Do me a huge favor, like the video, share the video with your friends, subscribe if you can, and as always, let's talk some football. Love ya.